So that whole, the logistics chain, the cold chain, all of that is still oldish technology that you think is ready for, an upheaval. There's a new way that one could consider thinking about it. One of the, from my research, I was trying to understand exactly that, the value add that comes post-harvest. And I found that, in the West, there's a lot of corporatization. Sorry. The large corporations that have stepped in to help with exactly that part. The post-harvest logistics chain, processing, value addition to bring the product to the food and to the dining tables. In India, we have ITC, that's the one large agri-tech company, but I couldn't find any of that scale, certainly. There may be smaller companies. Is that a direction that you think will help us solve or get somewhere with this problem, to bring more corporate interest somehow through policy?
I am not sure. I think that the problem in India is a little different from the US, in that in the US or in Europe, 2% of the population is engaged in actual agriculture. 2%. And for us, we are talking about 40, 50, 60% in some way. So the corporations are a very different character there, where once the production is done by this 2%, most of the other employees in the ag sector are actually all the people involved in this processing part. Now in India, we have to, and I think this is something very, very important, and I should have said it earlier. When I talked about pulses, I said there are low yields and there are low returns or low incomes, low profits. And there are many reasons for it, but one of the reasons is the small scale nature of production. One farmer with 1 hectare, doesn't know where to get the inputs from, cannot have a processing unit in his or her backyard, cannot hire a refrigerated truck. So I think it's very important what you said. To me, it's important to bring scale to smallholder farming. Now, we have 85% of our small farmers. If one company replaces them, what is going to happen to the livelihoods or incomes of 85% of our population? So we cannot go, we need some companies and we have some role, there are companies to play a role, but I think at a mass level in India, we really want to bring in all these hundreds of millions of people who are engaged in fishing, farming, etc. We have to think of models which will give them scale. So even while they produce individually, they can operate in some kind of collective. Now this is not a new idea. Many people have thought of it. And after independence, we had cooperatives, the idea of cooperatives, that people will come together. And there was also a very philosophical part of the cooperatives. But except for a few places in India, some cooperatives in Kerala, some cooperatives in Maharashtra, cooperatives have failed. And it was keeping this in mind that about a decade or so ago, we had a new idea which has been proposed by Indian policymakers called the Farmer Producer Organization, or FPO. So it can function like a company. Doesn't have to, because the cooperatives, one member has one vote, and there are all kinds of different rules and ways in which the cooperative was functioning. Is a different philosophy. Now, farmer producer organization, I think, in principle, is a good idea, because what you're saying is that instead of one hectare farmer, 100 or 500 get together, and then they can take money from a bank, they can find some investment, they can actually either invest in processing or at least even marketing. They can do it in bulk so that they get a price, or they can do some part of the storage. It's a collective effort. Now, farmer producer organizations, there are a few successful ones in India, but it still has not really got off the ground. Again, except that some exceptions are there. So in Maharashtra, there's some very successful ones. So I think we can think of So farmer producer organization really is like a small company, except it's not started by one person. The other thing, I feel that there is a lot of scope for startups, because some of the things we want are new technologies. So, for instance, this whole area of digital agriculture, apps, which a marketing app, so that even for somebody who wants to know the price, or a person who wants to collect produce, you know which farms to go to, because it's not 1,000 hectare farm where you go and collect your produce. You have to go 1,000 of those. So I think that there's a lot of scope for new technologies, which precision farming, the many new technologies, I think, are of a kind which can be applied at a very micro level and a small scale. So when we talk about precision farming, for example, you need a sensor to tell you when to irrigate. That is a sensor for one tiny plot. It's not a sensor which reads 1,000 hectares. So some of those old tractors may be big ones, but there's a lot of engineering and design and technologies which today actually can be done at the scale of a small farmer and can enhance the value of output of the small farmer. So I think there are technologies now which can do it much more than earlier, because we're not really talking about, there may be a few places where you need big machines or big trucks, but it's not, you can do things at a smaller scale. And also you can get better value by operating on larger produce. So we have some examples I'm trying to remember, where there are plants. There is a plant in Kerala that is doing fruit pulp. And they know where their producers are, and they message them the day that the fruit is ripe, and they collect it and bring it to the processing. So now with our phones, we can do this. So you can reduce the waste, and you don't have to send your truck out every day. You send it on the day when the fruit has to be collected, and you can ship it in and process it. So I think that there's actually a lot of scope for bringing higher value and giving scale to the small farmer than earlier. And because we have hundreds of millions of small farmers, we need to do that, not just rely on corporates.